Lane's still looking for the email. Ugh.
Do you have the gentleman's email?
No.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi,
I still
Elaine.
don't have it. I still don't have it.
Oh,
I
you,
don't know.
oh,
I
Alex,
don't know.
I have
I-
Elaine on the
Right.
phone, and she said she still hasn't gotten the email.
I
Oh,
have an email, but it doesn't have the right Zoom link in it. I
Okay,
have a newer email. It still doesn't work. We're gonna lose this guy.
I know, that's what I'm concerned about.
I
the
just
one
forwarded
that-
it to his email as well. I found his email online. Douglas d.Talamy@udel.edu.
Okay, Alex said he just sent it to his email. He found it online.
He found his.
Yeah, at edu. So look at
Yeah.
the
All right, I have
The-
one I can get into. Do you want this page? I guess. I don't know. This isn't working like it normally does either.
the link is the email said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know why that link is not working." Is that the email that you looked
I don't
at?
know. Enter your name and email. Oh, God. Sorry. Silly upsetting me.
Yeah, on the screen, you do have to put in your email, and then a button should pop open or go on that you could click to join webinar.
It should be the same as always, that the last one that I link.
Oh, okay.
The one that should be in everyone's inbox at 6:11 p.m. should be the same.
Alex said
They're both here.
Hello.
Oh, look, there's Doug.
Alex, did you say something? Oh, okay, here we go.
Hear him? Can we hear
We're
anybody?
in.
I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I can hear you, sir.
Good. Fun with Zoom.
Jenny, I can't.
Yeah, Elaine is having trouble with her audio, Alex. Is down in the bottom left corner, do you have a symbol having to do with your audio?
Can Elaine hear us?
Hey, guys, I
Yeah.
can't hear.
We could hear you. Oh, darn, she can't hear us. Mia,
She's got to turn her microphone on or her speakers on
okay. Are your speakers on?
or turn her volume up.
Okay.
Alex. I don't know. Don't know. Never mind.
Can you send a message in the chat?
Yeah. I don't know if she knows how to check it though.
Okay, hi.
You got it?
Now?
I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
she's gonna look
Yeah.
into her phone.
There we go. That should work fine. She can hear us on her phone. I'll just keep her muted until she wants to chat. Is
Okay.
that okay, Lane?
I don't know if she heard you. Now we can't hear
Yeah,
her.
I know. Now she's gonna have to. So Lane, in order to keep the audio good, you'll have to unmute yourself when you want to chat, and then you can hear yourself over your phone. Or I can just put your phone in. And let's do this.
And this is supposed to make our life easier.
99% of the time it does. I don't know
I
what
know.
happened with that link.
All right, how's that?
Perfect.
We can hear you.
Okay, all
Perfect.
right.
There you go.
So I'm really happy, Doug, that you were able to get on finally, and now I'm on too. I just wanted to say a few words about you. This is Doug Talamy. He is the T.A. Baker Professor of Agriculture in the Department of Entomology and Wildlife Ecology at the University of Delaware, teaching for 42 years, and he's published 112 research papers. And luckily for us, he's also published a lot of books that are geared more to lay people. And I've read several of them. They're excellent. And I have them to loan out to anybody who's interested. And I wanted to mention, this was a blurb on Nature's Best Hope, which I believe was his New York Times best-selling book, which said, Nature's Best Hope is a message for every landowner, renter, property manager, container gardener, government planner, and administrator. That's us. You have a vital role to play in the survival of biodiversity on this planet. So,
Mhm. Good.
yeah.
All
So,
right. Doug, I'm Ginny Harger. I'm the chair of the commission, and I appreciate you being able to join us this evening in our little work session. Commissioner Motto is the person that always gives a sharp eye on the list of plants and shrubs and every trees, whatever, when we go over site plans for commercial developments, because the developers have to submit a landscaping plan, and Elaine will be the one to say, gee, instead of this, could you do this? And they're all very open to it. So
Good.
I have to give Elaine a lot of credit for a couple
Thank you.
months ago approaching me to ask, could we have a discussion about this on the commission level? And I said, sure. So we decided that we would try and develop this. Elaine was the one that brought your name and your writings to our attention. So I just read the article last night that was about you in Smithsonian Magazine, and that was a great piece. And it explained how this came about in your personal life down in your property in Pennsylvania. And I thought that was quite interesting. So at some point, if you could just address the only question I have, because I do understand the importance of this, and I don't let my husband cut the grass so that the bees could come through for the dandelions. But is there an easy guide, visual guide that a person could use to identify the invasive versus the native plants? I would not, as a lay person, be able to do that. So
Well, I think the easiest thing to do these days is take a picture of the leaf and post it on iNaturalist, and you'll get an answer of what it is in
Mhm.
seconds.
Okay.
That's
I have
very,
seen that.
Or
Alright.
you can. I'll come tour your property and I can tell you
Yeah.
what,
there aren't that many species of invasives that are going to be in your yard. So it's really, you learn a few bad guys and you've got it.
Mhm. Okay, is there any specific tips that you could relay to us for us to relay or have in the back of our mind as we, because the whole thought process is, should we amend our zoning regulations to have something in there that this is the, maybe the list of plants that we would like to see versus keep away from these things.
Yeah, well, let me talk a little bit about the keystone plant concept. What we're trying to do is develop landscapes that support biodiversity
Mhm.
where we are. And so it's very clear that native plants support it a whole lot better than non-native plants. But there are a lot of native plants that don't support it all that well either.
Oh.
It turns out that just 14% of our native plants are they're supporting 90% of the caterpillars that are the basis of the food web.
Mhm.
To have your birds breed, you need thousands and thousands and thousands of caterpillars. Without that, you've got failed bird breeding. And there's really only a few plants that do that. So, most areas, oaks are number one. There are 950 species of caterpillars that develop on oaks, and they're contributing more energy to food webs than any other type of plant. Fortunately, they're great landscape plants as well. Close behind oaks are native willows. They're a little bit harder to use in landscapes. Native prunus, so black cherry is great, but a lot of people don't want to plant them either. But birches are good, hickories are good. You start going down the list. Native maples are good, but they're, down there around number 10. So understanding that plant choice, even among natives, is really important. When you're choosing plants for pollinators, you want to choose the ones that support the most specialist pollinators, because the generalists can use those plants as well. There are a third of our native bees. We have 4,000 species of native bees. So over a third of them can only reproduce in the pollen of particular plants. If you don't have those plants, you've lost, 1,300 species of bees. So again, most areas, and this varies a little bit as you move around the country, but goldenrods are way up there. Native asters are way up there. Perennial sunflowers, any helianthus is way up there. If you have those three genera in your pollinator garden, you can support at least 44 species of bees at any one location that won't be there if you don't have those. Now, the generalist bees use these plants too, so you're not losing anything by focusing on those. You just want to make sure, we call them keystone plants for pollinators. Now, you mentioned you convince your husband not to mow. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. What you should do is reduce the area you have in lawn, but the lawn you keep should be mowed, because that's a cue for care. It shows your neighborhood that you understand what the culture is, and you're part of it. You're not going to lower property values. You're just going to have less grass. And then you're going to have areas that you set aside where you put in the pollinator garden, or you plant the oaks with the big beds underneath. Areas that are never mowed. They're just designed for biologically active plants. That way, nobody gets mad at you. Say, "Oh, okay, you haven't abandoned your landscape. You haven't moved out." And the whole HOA restrictions. I mean, it's all about the fear of lowering property values. So we want to landscape in a way that's just not an issue. They're beautiful landscapes that just have more plants in them, and we'll use the lawn as places to walk. As we line our driveway and our sidewalks, whether the new beds we put in are all lined with at least one mower's width of lawn. And then it looks neat and tiny, and you've got a much more productive landscape.
Got it.
do you have a thought about, do you have a recommendation as to percentage of lawn versus woody plantings?
Well, there's only been one study about that, and that was our study. It was my PhD student, and she was looking at what percentage of native versus non-native woody plants is required to support a breeding population of chickadees? And the answer was 70%. If you have more than 30% of your woody plant biomass non-native, it's not enough to create enough caterpillars to support breeding chickadees. So what happens is it's not that the chickadees won't breed, but they won't make enough babies to replace the adults that die every year. So every year your population gets smaller and smaller, and it's unsustainable. But at 70%, you break even. And of course, if you have more than that, and if that 70% is comprised mostly of those keystone plants, then you can have growing chickadee population. And remember, it's not just chickadees, it's titmice, it's all the birds that are out there, cardinals, they all need the same thing. So 70 would be the minimum.
Now, when you say 70% of this area, is this area 1 acre? Is it part of a?
It's not area, it's biomass.
Okay, and
So-
what of the biomass of what? A municipality of?
No,
A
of the plants in the area that you're talking about, of the woody plants in the
Okay.
area that you're talking about. Chickadees only forage on woody plants. So if you're trying to come up with a figure like that for pollinators, nobody's done that. More is always better. The thing you want to try to go for pollinators is a sequence of bloom. We
Yeah.
have a sequence of pollinating species that come out from April right through the end of September, and there's always got to be something in bloom for them. So having blooming things early in the season can be a challenge. The next challenge, then a lot of things bloom, but then the next challenge is midsummer. Far fewer things are blooming in midsummer. Then the fall, a lot of things bloom in the fall, so that's usually not a challenge. But that's why the concept of no mow May doesn't make any sense, because you can't just provide forage for 1 month. You're going to get nothing out of that. Not only that, but grass doesn't supply anything for pollinators. So just not mowing it, you'll have tall grass, but it's still not helping. The only way you're going to help the pollinators by not mowing is having plants that aren't grass in there. And of course, if you fertilize with the weed and feed, it's got a broadleaf herbicide in there and it kills all those plants. So it's best to just design pollinator gardens or areas where you're never going to have to worry about mowing.
Yeah, there was quite an article a couple weeks ago about No Mo May from a town that's about 20 minutes away from us, and the gentleman had been issued a citation for violating the height of the grass, and he was worried that the story was whether or not he was going to be cited again.
Right.
And I think the town community figured out that they had too many other things on their plate to worry about, and
Yeah.
so.
But that's the issue. If you don't mow your grass, it looks like you're not taking care of your yard.
Mhm.
So you
Right.
just have less grass, but keep it mowed.
Mhm.
Do you have any references or suggestions for land use offices and commissions to look at? There's often a disconnect between policy and reality. For us to say, okay, look, here's this guideline, or here's this series of specs that other municipalities or states have used when reviewing subdivision applications, when reviewing streetscape designs, when reviewing PUD or other forms of land use applications. And that way, as land use officials, appointees, we can point to something. I'm not a landscape architect, I'm not a ecologist, etc. But I can refer to that, and not later down the road, but on the get-go when the application comes in. Hey, have you guys considered all of these things?
Right. I have a few examples of regulations that townships have passed that I could send you by email.
That would be great.
Because I am an ecologist, but I'm not a policy guy. And, there's all of the, all the dots that have to be, all the I's that have to be dotted and all that stuff. That is not my area, but people are writing regulations to guide new plannings and what happens on public property. And I'll try to dig one up and send it to you, but I have to have your email to do that. So
That I can share it to you. I sent you an email to the UDEL@edu. Is that a good email for you?
yeah, that's my only email.
Okay, I'll follow up with you on that. Because, what the city engineers and I, what we're also trying to tie in is green stormwater practices. And those types of facilities can often accommodate rain gardens or kind of marsh type environments. And I think it would be realistic and nice to attract and promote ecology for those type of micro environments, but
Right.
that's not my field of expertise, so I don't know what to tell people to do there. I can't point them in that direction.
That's a little tricky. Rain gardens are, and catchment basements are great, but they have to be designed so they drain quickly. Because if they're there for 2 or 3 weeks and then go dry, it's just enough time to produce a huge population of mosquitoes.
Yep.
And because they dry periodically, the predators of mosquitoes are not there. So either have permanent water and then you don't have mosquitoes,
Or
or
flush.
very, very temporary water, but nothing in between.
Yeah. We're working on that right now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which means you need good, very porous material
Mhm.
under those places.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we're trying to reduce the amount of large catch basins and drainage ponds, et cetera, and just have more pervious material.
Right. Well,
just to-
it's another huge benefit of reducing the area in lawn, because any other planting is going to be more pervious than lawn, particularly in the summertime when it gets sun-baked and everything just runs off.
Do you have, so I'll email you about some examples of other municipalities. As far as defining native species and and Elaine brought this up, I'm not sure if she already talked with you about it. Do you have recommendations on where we should turn to for good sources that are living documents? So 20 years from now, when probably all of us are in these roles, we can say, oh, you know what? These site plans require conformity with native species plants per state of Connecticut publication or per New England chapter of blank.
Right. Everybody has a different definition of a native plant. And we're actually going through this in the state of Delaware right now, arguing about definitions. So if you're restoring, from a perspective of establishing a food web that supports everything, you can actually be a lot looser about it than people think, because an insect that eats beech trees, for example, will eat a beech tree, whether it's from Canada or Florida or Missouri. They don't care as long as it's a beech. So it's more important to match up the provenance of the species you're talking about. So you get a seed source that's adapted to Connecticut rather than getting seeds from Kentucky, because you're colder up there, and those trees won't do very well. But is it native to the Piedmont versus the coastal plain versus the Appalachians? It's all within the mid-Atlantic states, and these plants occur in all these different areas. So it can get tricky. I suggest you keep it as loose as you can get away with. The other thing is sources of plants. We have very few specialty nurseries that only supply plants from given ecoregions. They're broader than that, and in terms of changing the culture that we have right now, where most of the plants are from Asia, it's okay if you get a plant from New York, even though you're in Connecticut. So I don't get as uptight about that as a lot of people do. And I know that's not helping you very much. What I can do when we actually figure it out in Delaware is just say, here, practice, copy this,
Mhm.
and that should be coming down the pike in the next couple of weeks.
Now, one of the kickbacks we often get from applications that come in is resiliency. Oh, that's not resilient. These street trees won't last. These plants won't last. The
Right.
native stuff, this or that. I don't believe it. I think it's more of a design flaw in how they're being installed and how they're being maintained. And I know salt from roadways and sand can harm some aspects,
Mhm.
but can you shed any light on best practices or recommendations onto where you think we could take that component?
Right. That's another area that is always pointed out, that native plants can't survive in cities. So that's ridiculous. But there is some truth to the fact that right plant, right place. You don't plant. I mean, this is one of the reasons that our pin oaks suffer so much in several of their street tree situations. It's Quercus palustris. That's an oak of the swamp. They want lowlands, and we don't do that. We put them in highlands and then wonder why they get sick and everything else. So red maple is a plant of the swamps too. But I can drive through the Pennsylvania mountains where you've got cuts through for roadways, and you can find red maples growing out of rocky crags with almost no soil at all, exactly the way it would be on a street corner. It's a genotype that is adapted to that. So what we need to do is find the native genotypes that really can handle really rough conditions. In the past, we found a few plants from Asia and say, okay, they're great. We're not going to even look for the native ones. But there's nothing special about Asian plants that make them better in polluted situations. So we've already done the filtering to come up with the ones from Asia that work. We can do the filtering for native plants as well. But you can go to any city and find a great native plant in a certain situation. All the willow oaks and elms in DC, they're in the middle of a city and they're doing just fine. But there is some consideration to which species you're putting where. The people from Delaware say, you dig up these roadsides and there's nothing but fill there and cement, and it's really hard to get the plants to grow. Yeah, that's right. You got to put soil there. Any plant needs soil. And I know Ailanthus will grow anywhere. It's just really hardy. Autumn olive, it fixes its own nitrogen and fertilizes itself, so it can grow pretty much anywhere. That's just an excuse to use plants like that, just because they will grow in situations like that. Let's find the native plants that do well in tough situations, and they do exist.
Okay. All right, Elaine, do you want to close up?
Yeah, I'd like to know how encouraged or discouraged you are in terms of this life work that you've been pursuing with some success. But, if I look around my neighborhood, it's pretty dreadful, and I don't know how it changes.
Well, I've been talking about it for 20 years, and I do see the needle moving. I do see changes. Look, you're talking to me tonight. This is the fourth thing I've done today because people are interested in this. And as soon as I hang up with you, I've got a webinar. So the demand for this information continues to grow. And when people actually follow through, they see the results, so that you get positive reinforcement. We're reaching a threshold where it's reaching normalcy in a lot of places. And that will convince the people that, they're not interested, but they do want to follow the norm. When they see their neighbor do it, they want to fit in. We're not there yet, but we're approaching that, and it's moved a lot faster than I thought it would. So I'm encouraged.
Glad to
Are
hear
there
it.
any associations or groups that are dedicated just to the native plant usage?
Well, Homegrown National Park,
Okay.
homegrownnationalpark.org. And our goal is to get this message to all the people who don't have a clue about it. And that is millions of them. Wild Ones is a group that has been promoting native plant landscaping for a number of years now. Of course, National Wildlife Federation is pushing it. A lot of groups are pushing it. So yes.
What was the second one that you mentioned?
Wild Ones.
Wild Ones. Okay.
Yeah. There are Wild One chapters in all the Midwestern states. Are starting to reach down. I think there's a Wild Ones chapter in Connecticut.
Oh,
Okay.
and the other I wanted to ask you, we're not ready to go to public hearing phase as yet. We're still work phase. Can we call upon you again for a brief talk at some time in the future?
You can ask if I'm open. I'll do it.
Thank you much. Yeah. Jenny, we do have several native plant nurseries in the state that have gotten pretty, that's all they sell. So
Good. Oh, good. Then we could chat about that. Good. Okay. Well, if there isn't anything else, and seeing that you have another webinar to do, I'd like to thank you for making yourself available tonight. We
All
appreciate
right,
it.
well, good
Thank
luck. And I appreciate what you're doing. It's a big step forward.
Yeah.
It was nice to meet you.
Thank
All right.
you. Again.
Okay. Okay, Elaine, if you have a list of those nurseries in the state, that would be good to look at.
One in Fairfield, and there's one, it's either Woodbury or Woodbridge, which I've been to.
Okay,
And Alex, he had, in one of his books, he mentioned World Wildlife Fund has a native plant finder on their website. And you can enter your region or zip code, and it will give you recommended plants for recommended situations. So you were asking for be updated and ongoing and available online. That would be a good resource. And Audubon Society also has something similar
good.
geared towards more towards birds specifically, but it's all
Mhm.
web.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And
Okay.
also rain gardens, Alex. You know, there's a detention pond over on Richard, right in the middle of the new section of Richard. And the whole entire edge of it is mugwort. It's just a huge mugwort garden.
That's not good.
No.
Okay. See, that's just it.
Yes.
So,
Good.
I mean, but that's where it was never planted appropriately to begin with.
Sure.
Right.
It was never installed with,
Well, they planted some shrub, I don't know, junipers or
yes, I don't
it's
know.
it's those things have to be maintained, you know. It's like a garden. Anytime you turn soil anywhere.
Correct.
Mhm.
And so, you know, one of the biggest takeaways that he said is it doesn't matter if the beetle or insect that eats beech trees is from China, Timbuktu, California, whatever, if it,
China, but
et
No.
cetera. Point
Like-
being,
yeah,
if
To the Northeast would be fine. You know, just say Northeast.
Mhm.
That
um,
Okay, I'll look on the websites myself to get better acquainted.
I'll send him an email tomorrow and ask if he has any suggestions for native plant species definitions that we could consider, and any regulations or guides that other municipalities use in reviewing their.
and that, and I think he said he would come up with some others, but he did send an ordinance, but basically what it said is that if you're growing native plants, then your neighbors can't force you to mow the lawn or something like that. You know, that if you have a reason for growing things in your front yard, if they're like a native plant garden, get you for being, what is that? What's that term?
White.
Blight. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I had sent that to you, but I looked at it today. I don't think it's very helpful for our use, but the
Yeah.
Wilton one, pretty good.
The Wilton one was fine. You know, where it would be really helpful is if as part of any site plan application or subdivision application, you know, just like we have breakdowns of here's how thick your pavement has to be, here's how it has to be installed, here's how your sidewalk has to be, here's how your, you know, we break down every component of a site and its layout, have something similar with plant species and ecology. You know, if you're going to, I think the first thing would be is, and I've been trying to do this since I've been here unsuccessfully, but to have subdivisions that come in flag trees that they're going to keep.
Yeah.
But you know, the counter argument to that is, well, then we can't move around the site, or there isn't enough space, or they don't leave enough room around the root ball, and they end up killing it anyway and have to take it down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, at least we could say, replace that with native species. Maybe the list of keystone species would be something to have.
yes, I made a note of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Keystone plant concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd be happy with any native personally, just start somewhere, but that's really maybe a better way to go.
Yep.
And not that
Yeah, I mean,
narrows it down for people.
I think something else would be something like, for any lot,
Mm,
residential, at least for starters, we won't approve a new application to have more than, what did he say, 30% of lawn area?
I don't think, but he was talking about biomass, so I assume the lawn has
okay.
less than trees and shrubs. So I don't know
Sure.
how population really, I'd have to ponder that a little more. Yeah, but I told you what happened here at Audubon, where
Mhm.
I selected oaks and shadblow. And there's like 3 shadblow left. They're actually doing very, very well. But people just killed the oaks. They killed them one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one left. One nice, beautiful oak. But one woman left a garden hose running on. It's like, oh, geez. I didn't know, but oh my God. Yeah, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then they put them somewhere else. They died. And then they put in their, Asian cherry trees instead. So
Mhm.
anyway. Yeah.
Elaine, do you remember the kind of trees that were on Howe Avenue and Center Street when there was a bunch of plantings? Because I remember Rick used to complain about them all the time, that they were not the right species. And I don't know who the heck ever chose them, but that was like a running argument. That was,
I put some dogwoods in and I don't know what happened to them. They didn't do well, but
they were like, was there a certain kind of cherry tree? Something about the roots or something or other that,
I don't know.
oh,
Well, they tried the Bradford at one point, and people are still trying to plant those.
yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Well, to be continued. Thank
Yes.
you both.
Not a
Yep.
problem. It was a good learning experience. The more we learn, the better it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alex, if you haven't come across it, dig up the Google his name in Smithsonian Magazine, and there's an article, quite a long article from April of 2020 that talks about him and how he got into this and everything. It was a good way of getting acquainted with him, that's for sure. So
Okay.
you're good.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Alex, you almost done with your list of what's happening in June?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
See you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, have a good night. Bye, Elaine.
What's tomorrow?
Now
Planning is
he will call me tomorrow. Okay, see
okay.
you later.